All right, now that I've picked kind of the Pokemon I'm inspired by, and I've done a sketch, in my case, it's inspired by a sketch my son did, combining these Pokemon, or doing basically just his version of Primal Groudon, his favorite, but I want to also be inspired by the one that I chose. I put some tracing paper over it, and you could do this digitally as well with a layer, of course, and I really wanted to highlight the anatomy, because this is what becomes important as we put together this creature. So when you're putting a landscape together from compositing, you're thinking of foreground, middle ground, background. You're thinking about certain things overlapping in what's called relative perspective, so that we know that the things that are overlapping are in front, and then our eye just travels back and things get hazier and softer as we go back into the far distance. And that's called atmospheric perspective. The goal here is to make a full creature from head to toe that's all in sharp focus. And we don't want any environmental things to creep in. We don't want little pieces of grass between the toes. We don't want even breath coming out of their nostrils, right? We want it to be like a sticker, just like these Pokemon designs, so that then we can take this creature and put it into our own background, any landscape we choose. So it's very important that we know where the joints are and where the skeletal structure is for our fantasy creature, so that as we find reference, we know where to weld it. We know where to connect the pieces. And I do this sketch before I find the reference, because this will help me know which reference is most usable. So I don't have all of the reference I need, but it's good to start with some of it, right? I have a head that's going to be a good piece. And if I bring that head on, notice how huge it is. So before I bring my reference, I want to make sure that my sketch is the right resolution, the right size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I use the rulers. You can see these pixel-based rulers at the edge of my image. And if you don't see them, you can go to view, and you can check and uncheck next to rulers. And for a Mac, the command shortcut is Command R. I would guess on a PC it's Control R. And then when you have the rulers showing, you can use the Move tool, and you can click on the ruler and bring down a guide. And I just want to make a guide that gives enough room around my creature to show me what my final resolution format is going to be, just like we did for our landscape. I think I'm going to change the tail a little bit. So I'm going to shorten that up, because I think I want more of an abrupt little short tail here than what my son drew. All right. Once I have that, I'm going to use the crop tool. And crop to those guides. Now, what's nice is in new versions of Photoshop and in Photopea, just because I cropped it, it doesn't mean I lost that data. All that sketch data is still out there. It's just focused in on these parameters now. So now this is the grid of pixels I'm seeing. Now I want to change this grid of pixels and allow for it to have more pixels, so it can be higher quality. So I go to Image, Image Size. Image size is all about the grid of pixels. I want to see that grid in inches. And so right now that is 8.57 inches wide by 6.4 inches tall. I want to change the smallest dimension, in this case my height, to 10 inches. So I want your smallest dimension in inches to be at least 10. And then I'm going to click on the little chain link, because then that will match the proportions of my image, so it doesn't squeeze it. And then, and I'll repeat all of this, because I know this can be a sticking point. Resolution's always tricky to get used to. Then I'm going to look at what Photopea calls my DPI, but what that actually is how many pixels are showing per inch. And if I was on Photoshop, I would choose 350, which is 50 pixels per inch more than what it would be for printing. Because standard print resolution, I'll say this again and again through the class, you'll have questions of it on your midterm and your final. Standard print resolution is 300 pixels per inch. That's what's needed for something to look good in a magazine or look good on a CD cover or look good on a poster. But because this is Photopea, if I do what I usually do professionally, which is 350, which is a little bit more than the standard, it makes the image huge, but it takes a long time to process. And it is going to make everything blurry on my sketch because my sketch wasn't that high quality. But hopefully my reference is, right? Remember, we only want reference that's at least 1,000 pixels. And you can see my original dimensions there. And I grew this by a great magnitude. Now, if you have Photoshop installed on your computer, do 350. It can handle it. And your resolution for your images should work for it. But if you're on Photopea, like I'm going to be on this semester because I want to do everything that you're able to do on whatever device you have, I am going to change the image size. So I'm doing it all over again, right? I'm changing it, making sure it's on inches, not pixels or anything else. Come on. And then I am taking the smallest dimension and making that 10 inches. Oh,
I'm still stuck on the cropping part. It's not letting me.
Are you sure you're using the cropping tool and not just the selection tool?
Yeah, the thing that said the two little lines that says C on it says crop in parentheses.
Yeah.
So after you make a selection, what do you press?
You just hit enter or return.
Oh.
But I can try to help you with this once this video is over. So.
Then you said the dimensions of it were.
Yeah, I'm going to put them in now. So it's, you want to make sure you're on inches, and you want to make sure your smallest dimension is 10 inches. And you can do more than that if you like. Like often I'll do 11 by, since 11 by 14 is a standard art, but I want at least 10. Whew, and my computer's having some trouble. I think my computer's having trouble just because I demoed taking it up to 350. So it demonstrates really clearly that the problem with resolution is that it takes more memory to work with more pixels. It takes more processing power, more memory. And when we use just a browser-based program like this, we're going to keep it at 72 because that will make it more doable. And as soon as I finish this change, so I put in the height at 10 inches, and then I click the padlock so that the width automatically fills in. So mine's going to be basically 10 by 13.5 inches. And then I want the DPI, which is actually the pixels per inch, to be 72. You have resample checked because you want to change the pixels you had before. And the interpolation is just how it will grow the pixels, and bilinear is just fine. And then just hit OK. And that will resize your pixels. So you can see my original one was about this size where my guides were. My new one is bigger. So now I can use my move tool and I can move my guide to my new dimension. And that's a good place to save it, right? So I'm going to save now as a PSD. Okay, next, I want extra space so I can move the parts around. I'm going to use the analogy of trying to build a car on an assembly line for this creature composite exercise. So I now have the plan for the car, but I need the factory floor. I need space to build each part, and I'll build the head maybe separately from the chest, and then I'll connect them later. So In order to do that, I'm going to go to image canvas size. And image canvas size will grow the paper around my image. It won't actually change my pixels. Instead, it will just add pixels as a frame around it. So I want to grow it from the middle. So that's the anchor is going to stay at the middle. I'm going to have relative unchecked because I want to control exactly how big this gets. And just like we did for the landscape, I'm going to make my width 40 inches and I'm going to make my height 30 inches. This will give me plenty of space. And then I say OK, and I still have my original guides there. And that image is the right size. The image inside my guides is 10 inches by 13.4 inches by 72 pixels per inch. And if I was using Photoshop, that would be 350 pixels per inch. But now I have more space, right? And I can see the rest of my sketch again. So now I'm ready to bring in my references. First, I'll bring in the head, right? And just keep it off to the corner. I'm not going to shrink it yet. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Next, I'm going to bring in the chest I think I want to use. And it will come in. Some of these are huge, right, from Pixabay. So that's really big resolution. But I know I don't need it quite that big. But I'm going to try to work with it a little bit bigger than I need, right? So here's my sketch. It shows me how much space I need those arms to take up. Here's the resource. And I'm just using Control T and then hitting return. Okay, so now I can start. I know I want to use this head in some form. I know I want to use this chest in some form, at least this collarbone. So what I'm going to do now is use my lasso tool and just roughly cut with a lot of overlap between these parts. I might even keep in that back leg. And then I'm going to hit Command J. And then I'm going to turn off the layer behind it and delete it because we want to save that memory, right? And we have it already in a reference file. So now, by looping around it, just like you would with scissors out of a magazine, and then hitting Command J, I have a cutout and it's automatically rasterized. So I didn't have to right click and say rasterize on it, because when you cut something out, and I'll do it with the head now, the head doesn't give me a lot of overlap. But when I use the lasso and loop around something and then hit Command J, it automatically rasterizes that because we've already edited what pixels we want. And now that head is too big, right? So I can do Control T. Oh, want to be on the right layer. So we'll get better and better at this. And then I want to hold down Shift because I don't want to distort the head yet. And just make it a little bit bigger than I need for now. So I know the head will go there. I know the chest will go there. But I want to make some additions to this head, right? This is the Brewfield Zoo lizard. I want to look for some reference for a horned lizard. And then I'm going to composite together on the head because the head's the focal point of any creature design. So I want to make sure the head is exciting to me. And I'm inspired by, some of the Pokemon shapes, some of the features. So I don't want to just take an animal's head as it is. I'm going to customize it. But I'm going to build it on its own, off to the side. And that will give a lot of my character. So let's see, is there any other reference I can bring over from what I found? I'm going to bring this one over because I think maybe that neck will be helpful. It fills in some of the gaps between this collarbone and the head I have. And so I'm just going to lasso it and copy it.